Have you used Google Jamboard? It's Google's interactive whiteboard app that's available on a device or also using your web browser. So how do you get there? Well, first of all, you could go to google.com and just simply scroll down, use the apps launch right here and click on Jamboard. You can also get there by just simply typing in jamboard.google.com, and this will take you to the Jamboard dashboard. Just hit this plus sign and you can create your first Jamboard. So how is Jamboard laid out? Well, it's really simple. You have your tools over here on the left. You have your backgrounds information and also what are called frames. They're sort of like slides up here. And then you can share your Jamboard with students, much like you would with a Google Slide presentation or a Google Doc. Students can collaborate on this as well. This right here says open on a Jamboard. Unless you have an actual Jamboard, the hardware, then you won't need this. You can just simply use the web version, or you can open this on an app. Okay, so how might this work? Well, first of all, you have this pen tool right here where you have a pen, a marker, a highlighter, and a paintbrush, and then you have 6 different colors. So you could actually use this pen to, write on something. So, say for instance, you wanted to draw something like an object, like a graph or a chart, you could do that. Simply hit clear frame and that'll go away. You could also go right here where it says background and change the background. We have lined paper. So if you wanted to use lined paper to write things, you can do that. Now, one of the disadvantages of Jamboard is that you do not have the ability to put in a text box. You only have the ability to write, and that's it. So if you're not very good at writing on a computer, what you may want to consider doing is you may want to consider using the tablet version. There's an Android and also an iOS version of the app that you can write on your screen. Or if you have a device like a MacBook, you can use a stylus or certain types of styluses on your trackpad. So that'll help you out with writing. Now, this right here is the eraser, so you can use the eraser. This is just your cursor, and then you have the ability to add some content. So let me say, for instance, I want to add a sticky note. This makes it sort of like Padlet, where you get the interactivity that Padlet gives in a Google format, I should say, and hit save. And here you go. Here's an actual Post-it note. You can resize it, you can duplicate it, you can delete it, you can even edit this. If you wanted each student to go ahead and put a Post-it note on here, you could have them do that. The only bad thing is you don't know who wrote the Post-it note. So just keep that in mind if you're having students collaborate on this. You can move this around, so I can move it around. And if I want to get rid of everything, I just simply hit clear frame, and that'll get rid of everything. What if, for instance, you wanted to add some flair to this? Say, for instance, you wanted to add a Google drawing. I just created a Google drawing here where I added 2 lines, and I want to use this to help chart things out. Now you see how it has a transparent background? It means it should not have any background. I can simply go right here and go to download. I can download a JPEG or a PNG file of that, and then I could go right into Jamboard. If I click right here, add image, now I can select an image from my device, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. Actually, I can just drag this right in there because it downloaded to my downloads folder. Now, here's the only disadvantage when you're using something like that. Let's say that I wanted to use the chart background. See how the transparent background does not carry over. So you may have to consider that if you are going to use some type of graph, you may need to embed that into your actual image if you're going to use Google Drawings. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this and go back to a solid white background. Now what I can do is I could use my pen, or I could use the marker to maybe chart something out, to graph it out. Now this is completely hand-drawn. So once again, you don't have the ability to draw using shapes or lines. So that's another disadvantage of using this with Jamboard, okay? So if you need precise lines, I would recommend that you use something like a Google Drawings. Now, how might you use Jamboard? Well, you could use Jamboard to do some type of live instruction through Google Meet. Perhaps you wanted an interactive board. Perhaps you wanted to create a screencast where you're teaching students about a certain process. So for example, right here I have the water cycle. So let's say that we wanted to do an instructional video on the water cycle, and I just created something just like this, or maybe I have something from a textbook. Now what I can do is I can simply click, add this image. So I'll add this image right here. When I add the image to my screen, I can resize it, okay, and I can reposition it if I'd like. And so now what I can do is I can start talking about this and using my pen, much like I would on a whiteboard. And I could say, okay, here's the evaporation part. Okay, so it's gonna go up here. Then you're gonna have the precipitation, and then you're gonna have the runoff. And so I could use this as a teaching tool. Okay, I can clear the frame. Another thing I can do too is I could add multiple what are called frames. So I could have students assigned to each frame. Maybe I want them to do a math problem. So here you go. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to select a file from my device, and I actually have a screenshot from yesterday that I created in Google Docs. And all I did is I just created something in Google Docs where I had a math problem. Let's say, for instance, you have a series of math problems that you just took a screenshot on, and you just added another frame and added more math problems. You could assign a student to a particular frame, and they could solve that math problem right here. Then what you could do is you could talk about it by visiting each frame. So that's one way to do things. Another thing you could do from a literacy standpoint is, say for instance, you have a passage. So maybe what you do is you have a passage that you want, and I'm going to upload the passage right here, and you want to mark up the text. You can do that. You can simply put the picture of this right here. You could use, instead of a marker, you could maybe use the highlighter tool. And let me just go ahead and highlight the content right here. So I'm going to highlight exactly what I want to talk about. I can use the pen or the marker to mark up the text. And this will allow you to then go through and talk about things. Excuse me. So another thing you could do, clear frame, is let's say that, for instance, you're talking about that passage and you wanted a Venn diagram. So once again, I just created this in Google Drawings. I'm just going to go ahead and download. And once I download that, perhaps, I have my text here. I'm going to go and open up a new frame here. And here's my Venn diagram. I'm just going to add in my picture. Just drop it in here. And now what I have is I have a Venn diagram where we can go through and we could actually write things on this Venn diagram. Now you see how this Venn diagram is up on my screen, and it's going to be really hard to write things in here. You can zoom in on your device. Now if you have a MacBook, which I have, you can actually pinch. If you have a tablet, you can pinch out, and that'll allow you to zoom in, and you can go through and you can write something. So say for instance we're talking about the pros and cons of mammals, or the Venn diagram of mammals and reptiles. Let's say that mammals, so I'll write down mammals right here. And writing on writing on an actual device is hard if you're trying to do this with your hand or your mouse. So once again, I would recommend using maybe the tablet version of this. And let's say that mammals, they have hair, okay, and I can move over here, and let's say that they reproduce, okay. So I can go through and I can teach an entire lesson like you see right here using Jamboard, and I can just zoom back out. And then the beauty is when I'm completely finished, let's say I gave a live lesson, I'm tutoring students on some things, I go right here, I can download this as a PDF, and then I could put this in my Google Classroom so that students could see my notes. I could save this frame as an image if I just want this image. So say for instance I want my students to perhaps create their own Venn diagram, or perhaps I want students to take what I have here and put it in a Google slideshow presentation. They can do that, and here it is. This is the actual marked up, and once again, you can't remove any of these things. It's permanent. So those are 4 different ways that you could use Jamboard. And when you're completely finished with it, you can just close out. You can even name your Jamboard like you would a Google Doc right here. So we'll just call this writing and hit OK. And where do you access it again? Well, you could access it one of two places. You could go to your Google Drive, and in Google Drive, if I open this up right here, it is actually right here. Here's my Jamboard. I can also go to jamboard.google.com, and when I go there, here it is. If I want to get rid of it, I can remove it. If I want to download it as a PDF for everybody, I can do that. Or if I want to rename it, I can rename it. So that's a brief tutorial on how to use Jamboard, and good luck.